The sun rose over Willow Creek Estates, casting a golden shimmer across the calm water of Crystal Lake. For 15 years, I had started my mornings here, slipping into the cool surface and floating on my back while the sky shifted from pink to bright blue. It wasn't just a routine, it was freedom. The kind of peace you can't put a price on. My 4-bedroom colonial house and 3-car garage were nice, but this lake was everything. When I bought the property, I knew part of the lake stretched into HOA boundaries, but I also knew a good portion was mine. My deed spelled it out clearly. For over a decade, there was never a problem. Neighbors waved as they walked by, sometimes even joking that I had the best backyard in the community. During summer, I'd let the HOA host their picnics on my shoreline, enjoying the laughter of kids splashing while burgers sizzled on the grill. Life felt balanced, fair, even neighborly. But peace doesn't last forever. Change came dressed in blazers, clutching clipboards, and speaking in rules instead of kindness. That's when Karen arrived, the kind of HOA president who saw power not as responsibility, but as a weapon. She was the textbook definition of an HOA tyrant. Sharp heels, sharper tone, and a smile that never reached her eyes. At her very first board meeting, she handed out warning letters like candy. 17 in her first month. Mailboxes 2 inches too tall, grass half an inch too long, cars parked 3 minutes past curfew. She carried a ruler in her purse, measuring and enforcing like her life depended on it. At first, I thought I'd be spared. After all, what could she possibly find wrong with a man quietly swimming in his own lake? The answer came on a hot Saturday morning in June. I was doing my usual laps, the water cool against my skin, when I heard a shriek so sharp it could cut glass. "Excuse me. Excuse me, sir." I turned toward the shore, squinting against the sunlight. There she was, Karen in a full blazer despite the 90-degree heat, clutching her clipboard like a shield. She looked like she'd stepped straight out of a boardroom and onto the sand, and she was glaring at me like I was committing some kind of felony. "You need to exit the water immediately," she barked, waving her clipboard as if it were a badge of authority. I swam closer, though not too close. Something about the way she clutched that clipboard made me think she might try to hit me with it. "Good morning, Karen," I said, forcing a smile. "Beautiful day for a swim." Her sunglasses glinted, oversized frames that screamed, "I want to speak to the manager." She read off her clipboard like it was scripture. Swimming is strictly prohibited in community bodies of water. HOA Regulation 7.3.9 clearly states that all recreational water activities require board approval and proper insurance documentation. I laughed in disbelief. "Karen, this is my lake. I own this portion. Check the property records." She shook her head, lips curling into a smug smile. "The HOA governs all shared natural spaces within our community boundaries. This lake borders HOA property, therefore it falls under our jurisdiction." "That's not how property law works," I shot back, starting to swim toward my dock. "We'll see what the lawyers have to say about that." She lifted her chin. "Consider yourself on notice," she called after me, her voice echoing across the water. I thought that would be the end of it. Surely, once she looked at the property lines, she'd realize her mistake. But I underestimated both her determination and her ability to twist reality. The letter came 2 days later, on official HOA letterhead, hand-delivered to my mailbox. "Violation of community standards," it read in bold. "Fine, $1,000 for unauthorized use of community resources." 3 pages long, full of invented rules and threats of legal action if I continued my reckless endangerment of community safety. I stared at the paper, jaw clenched. $1,000. For swimming. In my own lake. I tried to be reasonable at first. I gathered every document I had, my deed, the original 1952 survey, water rights paperwork, even a signed letter from the previous HOA president acknowledging my ownership of the shoreline. I highlighted, underlined, stapled, and hand-delivered the entire packet to Karen's house. She opened the door wearing yet another blazer, this one pink, as though she had a whole closet dedicated to HOA enforcement fashion. She barely glanced at the stack of papers. "The fine stands," she said flatly. "The board has spoken." "The board?" I asked. "When did the board meet about this?" She smirked. "Emergency session. We take safety violations very seriously." Later, I learned that emergency session was just Karen and her two allies meeting at Starbucks. The letters kept coming after that. Nearly every day, another warning, another fine, another threat. She filed complaints with the city, whispering to neighbors that I was planning to open an unlicensed water park. I became the villain in her story, the reckless rule breaker endangering everyone's children. Mrs. Henderson, 2 doors down, even asked me if I was really building slides on the lake. That was the moment I knew playing defense wasn't going to cut it. So I dug in. I spent nights combing through HOA documents, bylaws, contracts, agreements going back 30 years. And then I found it. The smoking gun. An easement agreement from 1998, allowing the HOA to use a portion of my property for maintenance access. The agreement gave them rights to a small beach area and the gravel road their trucks used. The kicker? The agreement expired after 25 years unless renewed. And guess what year it was now? 2024. Nobody had renewed it. For 6 months, the HOA had been trespassing on my land. I double-checked with my lawyer, who actually laughed out loud when I explained. "So she fined you for swimming on your own property, while her organization is illegally using your land," he said. "This is going to be fun." I knew exactly what I had to do. I waited until the next board meeting. Karen ran those meetings like she was presiding over Congress, gavel and all. She loved the attention, the authority. I signed up for the public comment period, and when my name was called, I walked up with a leather folder in my hands. 2 could play the documentation game. "Thank you, Madam President," I began, matching her formal tone. "I'm here to discuss the expiration of the easement agreement between the HOA and my property." The room went silent. Karen's gavel hand twitched. I pulled out copies for each board member. As you may not be aware, the HOA's legal access to the northern section of Crystal Lake expired 6 months ago. You have been trespassing. My attorney has drawn up a new lease agreement. The terms are reasonable. Continued access, for an annual fee of $5,000. The gasp from the audience was audible. Someone's coffee cup hit the floor. Karen's face went from red to white to purple. "That's extortion," she shrieked. "That's market rate for lakefront access," I replied calmly. I even brought comps from 3 commercial real estate agents. "If anything, I'm giving you a discount." I slid the lease across the table. "You have 30 days to decide. After that, I'll be installing a gate." Chaos followed. The neighbors, once distant after Karen's gossip campaign, suddenly had plenty to say. Facebook groups exploded with angry posts about fees and Karen's vendetta. Emergency budget meetings were demanded. Karen sent me cease and desist letters, but her lawyer admitted they had no standing. She claimed historical use rights but couldn't back them up. She even tried dragging the city into it, but they wisely stayed out. Finally, with 2 days left before my deadline, the board caved. The community center was packed, residents standing in aisles, someone even live-streaming the meeting. Karen sat at the head table in a severe black suit, looking like she was attending her own funeral. The vote was unanimous, except for her. 4-1. The lease was approved. Everyone's HOA fees went up to cover the cost. The backlash was immediate. Neighbors turned on her. Memes of her face on the Titanic circulated online. Residents gave speeches about fiscal responsibility, about her abuse of power. A recall petition spread like wildfire. The morning of the recall vote, I went for a swim. As I floated on my back, I saw Karen's car in the lot, her table of cookies and flyers untouched. By evening, the results were in. 87% voted to remove her. The highest margin in HOA history. She stood up clutching her leather notebook like armor. "This is a mistake," she declared. You'll regret this when property values plummet. Someone in the back laughed. She stormed out, heels clicking like a countdown to her exile. A week later, the new board sent me an apology letter, refunded my $1,000 fine with interest, and offered a renegotiated lease for $500 per year. I accepted. I celebrated by installing a new sign at the entrance to my shoreline. In big, friendly letters, it read, "Private property. Swim free." And underneath, in tiny print only visible up close, HOA leadership not welcome. These days, I still swim every morning. Sometimes I float on my back and think about that boardroom, the look on Karen's face when I announced the $5,000 fee. Worth every second of research, every dollar in legal fees. She thought she could control me with a clipboard. But sometimes, when you stand your ground, the clipboard snaps in half.